And we're going to start off today on this nerdy review. We're going to be doing MS Igloo. Now, MS Igloo breaks up into 3 sub-series. It's kind of funny and weird. There's the first 2, which are tied together, which is Hidden 1 Year War, and then Apocalypse 0079. And then we have MS Igloo 2, The Gravity Front. And I'll try to give you the story basis. It's going to be a little bit hard to explain the second one, though. So the first 2 basically follows around Lieutenant Engineer Oliver May and the crew of the Jotunheim. They basically do experimental, it's very standalone episodes where they review and take notes regarding specific experimental Xeon weapons and suits. That's pretty much it, the entire series. And they do this throughout the entire 1 Year War, from the beginning to the very end. MS Igloo 2, The Gravity Front, is another set of standalone episodes that features more towards the Federation front in the European battles. But it involves the Angel of Death. Super weird, and I will get to that one when I talk about that one in particular. Each of these sub-series are 3 episodes each, clocking in around about like 24 to 26 minutes each. Very bite-sized, super short series, 9 episodes total if I'm going to count MS Igloo in the entirety. I do want to make one correction from a previous review regarding the Mobile Suit Gundam The Origin review. I had stated that Origin was the first ever to depict the Battle of Loom. I am not entirely wrong there. I'm wrong in the sense that it was the first time depicted. It does depict the Battle of Loom in a much grander scale, and it's much more involved. MS Igloo is actually the very first to depict the Battle of Loom, albeit in a different manner and way, and it's very, very brief. It was in the very first episode. Not that great. For those that don't know, this is a CGI-based series. MS Igloo, The Hidden 1 Year War came out in 2004. The sequel of that one Apocalypse 0079 came out in what was it again? 2 years later, 2006, and then MS Igloo 2, The Gravity Front, came out in 2008. Each of them are all CGI-based series. I'm not going to say it's the very first CGI series in Gundam, because I'm pretty sure there's other ones. I think the closest one was called Gundam Divers, or Green Divers, if I remember correctly. That came around in the 90s, late 90s. It was an IMAX short film for Gundam. Super short and sweet. There was also G Savior. Ugh, this is a terrible, terrible movie. But it does involve live action with CGI suits that was made in 1999. But this series, MS Igloo, is the first that I'm aware of the purely CGI. Now, the CGI in this series isn't actually that bad. It's actually pretty good. There's no like mixture of 2D with CGI or 3D, kind of like Gundam The Origin does. So it's not one terrible thing. But one thing I didn't really like is the facial expressions, especially in MS Igloo 2. I say this because they try to do like the whole anime facial expressions, especially in number 2, like the those like kind of like expressions, and it's horrifying in CGI. It doesn't translate well from animation to CGI at all. It's disturbing. It adds into the horror that is MS Igloo 2. I'm not saying that as a terrible series, but I'm also saying it as the animation standpoint, or the thematic standpoint, genre standpoint, if you will. The first 2 kind of cover like like the basic expressions and whatnot, so it doesn't try to go over exaggerating, which is just fine. It feels more in tune with Gundam as it is. The second one, not so much so. Even as a CGI series, though, it feels like super early PlayStation 3 graphics, like cut scenes or something from PlayStation 2. Even with MS Igloo 2 with more refiner graphics, it still looks super dated and very kind of like choppy or blocky at times. Not the look, but just the feel of it. I think I've seen better CGI than this, definitely. The CGI wasn't that great. There are a handful of episodes I really do enjoy from this series. The first two episodes from hidden war dealing with a mobile tank, and the EMS 10 Zuda were fun episodes. I liked them. The battles were cool. And then the final episode in the Apocalypse 0079 was a fun finale episode. A lot of nice fighting there too. I just hate the gotcha of like, oh, main character dies and they're alive. And then for the MS Igloo 2, the last two episodes dealing with the Type 61 tank and the I forgot the gun cannon name for that one specifically. Or so gun tank. I'm sorry, gun tank in that one. But that was a cool one too. Speaking of deaths, every single episode, with the exception of the final episode of Apocalypse Episode 79, follow very much of a mecha of the week, the pilot of the week, and their eventual death and destruction. There is no spoilers in that one right there. Every single episode is going to introduce you a phantom fighter of the 1 Year War. And these are suits or weapons that get used, and the users or pilots die, and they just disappear from the war. That's basically it. I think it's kind of cheeky and cheesy when they say it's a phantom fighter, but I can totally get that because that happens. That does happen for the most part. I think another thing it's really, really hard with the series because of that format that it has, that Mecha of the Week, the Soldier of the Week, and the Death of the Week, right? And each of these episodes are so standalone-ish, with the exception of the first two sub-series, because they kind of tie into each other by telling a story, but it's very loosely telling a story. You don't get a real sense of connectivity, a real sense of connection to this series. It's like, okay, I watched episode. Did it really have a pertinence? Do I have any connection to the characters or any development? Not really. Apocalypse 0079 tries to address this and make a little bit more cohesion behind it, but not by a whole lot. And definitely MS Igloo too. You can throw that out the window. It doesn't even bother. It goes right back to the whole standalone episode. So if you really want something kind of standalone, bite-sized, you can jump into this and that'd be fine. Whatever, and it'll be okay. You want something kind of like with substance and storyline, this is not a show to go with on that one. This one doesn't do a great job of that. Some fans might argue with me there, but MS Igloo is not very, very strong within the community, in my opinion at least. I want to talk a little bit about MS Igloo 2 specifically because it is a very unique of the Gundam series. I would almost say it's very much closer to a Gundam horror series. I mentioned earlier the story revolves around, the Federation front at the European side, right? And it features this embodiment or ghost or this angel of death that you see every single episode. This female-based character basically haunts our main protagonist and is the main antagonist of every single episode. But she haunts them and then basically guides them to do kill essentially. I think it's kind of funny though, because in the last episode, and this is what I like about it, it's like I like the action, but I also like the story too. It's almost Saw-esque at the very end, where the main character is about to do what she's about to do, and then the angel of death shows like, "Are you sure you want to do that?" And it's like, "Yes, I'm committed. I'm gonna do it," and she does it. And then right there, you can just play that Saw music, that like dun dun dun, and like it kind of plays back some like not quite flashbacks, but certain things that we didn't get aware of, and it's like one of those like it's like a plot twist, and it's like, oh snap, you shouldn't have done that. And yeah, I thought that was something I did appreciate from that episode alone. But that episode and the cool fights and some of the ones and whatnot can't save this series entirely. This whole Angel of Death, I mentioned, it brings this like horror perspective because it's like a ghost haunting these characters. It almost reminds me of I think the series is called Hell Girl, if I'm not mistaken, where you would call the number and you would request your wish to Hell Girl and she'll make it come true, but then she'll drag you to hell afterwards. And it's kind of like that, where these characters have their like death wish. They want to get back at this particular soldier or do this certain thing. And when they do that, they end up signing their death contract and dying. And that's kind of like that weird thing. And it kind of reminds me of that series. And it was like very much like very different for Gundam, especially dealing with this whole ghost thing. I mean, we deal with new types and new type ghosts, like projections, kind of like almost a lot of the Star Wars. But this was like a legit ghost haunting these soldiers. So I'm like, you got some horror right there. If that's not horror, I don't know what is then. That said, there's not a whole lot in the series I really truly enjoy, but I do want to point out something I want to add a little bit new to our series. I didn't do this as the previous reviews. I might want to address those suits later, but every single Gundam series does bring a brand new suit. Something new to the table, right? And I want to do a little segment about my favorite suit of the series. And as you can see right here, I have the EMS-10 Zuda. I think it's actually kind of a cool design. We see this starting in episode 3, and it goes throughout 4, 5, and 6. Really neat design. I think it was cool. It's kind of funny with the story how it was the Zuda versus the production of the Zaku, and Zaku's won out the bid with the Zeon army versus I forgot the company for Zimad. Zimad is the owner of Zudas. And Zudas are cool. Their fight performance is cool, except for when it gets to critical thrust output. It could be a catastrophic failure that can end in it does end in the destruction of the suit and the pilot. So I think that's kind of tragic about the suit, but it's a very cool design. I liked it. Very nice, sleek, simplistic, almost Zaku-esque. So I just want to pull that one out for you guys. Now for the other segment of I'm new to the Gundam franchise. Should I start with this series first? This is one of the easiest ones I can tell you. No, do not start with MS Igloo first. This is not anything else I can say about that. That it's just a hard no. Even as a hardened like UC elitist or a fan of the Universal Century, this is a hard series to get into. As a newbie, you're not going to feel any connectivity amongst the episodes. Granted, the first 6 are going to be somewhat loosely connected. There's no true connectivity behind it. They're bite-sized, mostly forgettable episodes that don't truly correlate with the 1 Year War, nor make you feel comfortable jumping into any other series. If you jumped into this one and you try to jump into the original Gundam or Origin, it's not going to make much sense. It's not going to correlate, and it's not going to feel that good. As a longtime franchise fan, I can appreciate to some extent because it gives us these phantom fighters, but there are some inconsistencies in the history now, like as you know, the Gundam timeline progresses. There's some inconsistencies behind that. Apologize for that. And it's just things I'm like, I can't get behind. It's just not as enjoyable of a series to watch. So definitely, this is a big no for me. And a big no to you if you're getting into the Gundam franchise. This is something do not start off with. Now, as for a overall on this, I think this is a nice experimental CGI series. But the story, or very loosely put on story and approach, is a hot mess. Yes, it's standalone. It's meant to be bite-sized, but because it's focusing on these phantom fighters that don't really correlate to the overall 1 Year War storyline, it's not that great of a watch. Yeah, some of the fights are fun to watch, and there's some cool little twists, but not by a whole lot. I do appreciate that it also tries to introduce or inject a little bit of a horror genre into the Gundam franchise, which we do see some genre deviations, because this is primarily a war drama real robot genre series. But there are some deviations within the franchise, so it's kind of a nice welcoming one there, but it doesn't do a whole lot to save this series overall. Even as a UC fan, it's not something I would recommend unless you are someone who really, really wants to watch all of Gundam or is a UC purist or elitist. So other than that, this is a series that's a definite easy pass, and it's not really to be watched unless you want to complete the entire watch, like what I'm doing. Other than that, Mobile Suit Gundam MS Igloo gets a solid 2 out of 5. Man, it sounded like, Zaka, you were giving a lot of negatives to this series. Why didn't you give it a 1 or anything like that, or even a 0? The only arguments I'm going to make towards that is because there's actual, like, some fun things in this series, and some people do appreciate the standalone. I did like some of the standalone portions, but honestly, for a series overall, this is something I just couldn't get really behind, and definitely something I can't really recommend. Again, it does have some merits behind it, though, and that's why I got a 2, I feel. Definitely can't go beyond a 2, and 2 is being very nice. It could have gotten easily a 1, especially with MS Igloo 2. But, yeah, that's how I feel about it.